the Haryana State Employment of Local Candidates Act 2020. Now, this is in order to ensure the vision of an unemployment-free state by the year 2024. The Haryana State Employment of Local Candidates Act has been enacted for providing employment to the local youth. And in a press release, the Chief Minister, Mr. Manohar Lal Khattar, said the present state government had made this promise before coming to power, which the government has fulfilled in a span of just 2 years. On the other hand, the Gurgaon Industrialist Associations have challenged this law by way of pending writ petitions in the Punjab and Haryana High Court. There is a strong view in the industry that by introducing the policy of son of soils, the Haryana government wants to create a reservation in a private sector, which is an infringement of the constitutional rights of the employers, because private sector jobs are purely based on skill and analytical mind of the employees. So this act is an attempt to introduce a domicile method to get a job in private sector, rather than on the basis of qualifications, skills, and merits. Now, again, as per the law, any company more than, or any sort of entity more than 10 people has to ensure 75% of staff as local. Of course, subject to certain limits which the panelists will today share and debate. And 80% of the employees in Haryana are from other states, especially in the bracket which we are talking about. So it can be a huge industrial unrest, especially in industries like exports, garments, auto, etc. in India. Now, to discuss this burning issue, we have 3 experts with us today. Allow me to welcome Mr. Rambir Dalal. Rambir is the managing partner at People Science Consulting, which specializes in labor laws and employee benefits. Rambir is a former regional Provident Fund commissioner, and he was also India practice leader for KPMG's PF and social security practice. Rambir brings over 25 years of experience in dealing with social security and employment laws. Welcome, Rambir, to the panel. Now,
thank you so much. Great to be here. Thank you.
We have Mr. Ravinder Singh. Mr. Ravinder Singh is an MBA from IMS Ghaziabad with a PG from XLRI Jamshedpur and has over 3 decades of rich experience in HR and admin functions. Mr. Singh is currently the Director HR at Magneti Marelli, which is an MNC into auto parts manufacturing, and has previously worked in leadership roles in other MNCs like Hitachi Metals, Marathon Electric, and many more. Mr. Singh's core competencies include leadership development, talent management, and union relations management. Welcome, Mr. Singh, to the panel.
Thank you, Sumit. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the panel.
Perfect. So the third panelist on the call is Mr. Vishal Garg. Vishal is a senior group legal counsel and company secretary at Ericsson. He has over 25 years of experience in the legal and compliance domains in companies like Comviva, India Bulls, and many more. Vishal loves dissecting laws, reading between the lines, and academic debates to unearth loopholes and gray areas in new laws. Welcome, Vishal, to the panel.
Thank you, Sumit. Thank you, panelists. Thank you so much.
So now, a little bit 10 seconds about me. I'm Sumit Pahwa. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Complinity Technologies, which is a governance, risk, and compliance software, India's leading compliance software. And I'm also, by the way, a company secretary and a corporate lawyer by profession, and with 20 years of experience into several as an in-house counsel and in the practice prior to co-founding the Complinity compliance software. So thank you all for joining this webinar. And again, I'll give a brief 1-minute overview and then over to panelists for some good discussions. So the overview is that the Haryana State Employment of Local Candidates Act 2020, it was passed by the Haryana Legislative Assembly on 2nd of March. On 6th of November, very recently, there was a notification in the official gazette which made the date of commencement of this act as 15th January 2022. And that's why this is quite a hot topic, because the act is now enacted. It's going to be commencing from 15th January. So it's very important for us to understand what are the implications, how to, what are the issues, etc., gray areas and stuff. The act applies to all employees or workers drawing less than 30,000 per month gross salary or wages. Earlier, the limit was 50,000, but by way of a notification of 6th of November, the salary limit was reduced to 30,000. So it does not apply to employees more than 30,000 per month salary, but definitely less than 30,000, everybody is covered. And as per the law, it would be mandatory for all employers to register all their employees drawing gross salary or wages not more than 30,000 per month on the designated portal available on the official website of Labour Department, Haryana. And other than the registration of all the existing employees, they will require to hire to hire 75% of the local candidates of all the new recruitment posts where the gross monthly salary or wages does not exceed 30,000. And violation of this provision or the entire act is a punishable offence, and there are severe penalties to it. So with this background, I think we'll straight away jump onto the panel discussion. My first question would be to Rambir. Rambir, would you term the current law as politics or economics? Are we talking of a welfare state really, or is it more a vote bank politics? And also, there have been similar reservations in the past in other states like Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, etc. But they have also been challenged, etc. So, if you can throw light on what has been the fate of those laws in other states.
Thank you very much, Sumit. So first of all, on the question of politics versus economics, now, we would all agree that politics is deeply rooted and deeply connected with economics, jobs, livelihoods. So any government of the day has the mandate to take care of the livelihoods and jobs for their constituents. In Haryana, the numbers of unemployment has risen sharply over the last 5 years. And it's very alarming actually that 30% to 40% of the Haryana population is unemployed as of now in 2021. So there are these pressures on the ground which are building up and which naturally get an outlet in some sort of reaction or response from the government. So that is the background of why such changes or why these discussions are happening. Now we will discuss whether this political development or this legislative development will be beneficial for the Haryana economy or not. That's a complex question, and we will discuss some threads with other panelists also, Sumit, because right now, first of all, we need to have concrete data on what kinds of jobs are available and what kind of candidates are available. So to that extent, at least one good thing that might come out of this record keeping that will happen now is that we will have concrete data. But ultimately, we have to find a solution among government, industry, and academia how this potential problem which has now come up can be resolved. We have been talking about a lot in employment generation, but that puzzle still persists. Perhaps this will put more pressure. All the stakeholders need to think hard on how our youth can become employable, because many industry leaders would tell you that the problem is not essentially employment, but it is employability of the people who graduate from our institutions. So I would leave it at that. In terms of your second question on what is happening on some of the other states, so there were a lot of similar discussions in Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Andhra Pradesh, but there were only some resolutions by the government or by some other stakeholders. But in terms of the law being enacted, it was done only in Andhra Pradesh in 2019, and there also a window of 3 years was given to hire the candidates, the local candidates. That law has been challenged in the High Court on the grounds of constitutionality. So that is pending, but they still have a 3-year window to recruit local candidates. So I'll leave it at that at this moment, and we'll take it up in the later part of the discussion. So, thank you.
So my next question is to Vishal. Vishal, if you could tell the audience, first of all, to whom is this applicable? what is the applicability of this law, and does this, in your opinion, does this pass the test of constitutionality? I mean, the Article 14, right to equality, Article 15, right of no discrimination on account of caste, color, religion, etc. Article 21. Does this pass the test of constitutionality?
So, thank you so much for that question. I think in terms of the applicability, the statute extends to whole of state of Haryana. And reading it along with the way employer has been defined under section 2E, which talks about companies, LLPs, trusts, partnership firms, and persons employing 10 or more persons, I think the applicability essentially is intended to be for almost all kinds of organization. When we talk about any person, which will essentially get read under the General Clauses Act, it does not leave any iota of doubt that all kinds of entities will get covered. Any entity having 10 or more persons, whether you pay it as salary, wages, or other remuneration, or whether you are in a manufacturing side or you provide services, such entities will get covered. The only exclusion from that scope is awarded in that section itself, wherein they say that the government from time to time may notify what might not apply and what might apply. That is another thing. But it does not apply to central government or state government or organizations owned by central or state. Now, I'll come back to the debate about whether it is as per the articles of the Constitution in terms of rights that the citizens enjoy in terms of freedom to pursue any service or occupation, or whether it is essentially giving you an opportunity to be employed anywhere in India or not. But that said, there is slight debate around whether it applies to all companies, LLPs, or those LLPs and companies need to have at least 10 or more persons. Even though two places define it slightly separately, section 1.5 actually talks about it as if the companies, societies, trusts, and LLPs and partnership firm, and I would say any person employing 10 or more persons, that's how it has been defined. But in other section it says, or any other person employing 10 or more persons, giving an impression that a company, even with no people, 9 people or 8 people or 5 people, could possibly fall within the definition of the employer. However, that might not be true, and we might need to wait for the rules to look at the applicability being clarified. That said, there was another debate around what if I have 2 or 3 offices within Gurgaon, and beyond that, what will it apply to? So essentially, in practical terms, I understand it will apply to all the offices and the people that you might have employed there. Let's say I have 3 offices. In that scenario, 3 offices combined will have to be looked at for the applicability of the statute in terms of the scope.
So Vishal, what we're hearing is, just to clarify, if a company has say 3 offices, one in Gurgaon, the other one in Chennai, the other one in Bangalore, and all combined also, if the headcount is more than 10, then the act will be applicable to this company, even though in Gurgaon the people will be less than 10. Right?
Yes, possible.
Right.
Essentially, because the umbrella covers you the moment you are having a company and with more than 10 people.
Right.
It does not say whether they need to be in Haryana state.
Sure.
But essentially, when it comes to application, the amount of people that you have in Haryana will actually get counted.
Yeah. And
but yes,
about the constitutionality, Vishal?
In terms of the constitutionality, I think there can be debates on either side. However, broadly speaking, it is on the cusp of being non-constitutional. Essentially, in the given times when we are talking about one India on several platforms, and then we talk about even the right of privacy to be included as a fundamental right when we talk about right to life. Similarly, the right to employment, the right to being not being discriminated on any grounds covers the right to be employed, and such issues not be brought up when you are seeking employment, or to reserve employment on grounds of your domicile alone are on the border of not being constitutionally valid. However, just as a data point, because of the Supreme Court decisions on either side and certain factors being listed by the Supreme Court, one being that such legislations, just like Mr. Ramvi said, the Andhra Pradesh legislation is meant only for 3 years. What the current legislation has tried doing that in section 1, subsection 4, they have given an expiry date of 10 years for this legislation. So they have tried coloring it as if it is a temporary measure to uplift the people of Haryana. That might be one of the defenses they take when the constitutionality gets challenged, but I think that's only one of the straws that can be easily broken.
I think it'll be up to the courts to decide if anybody's guess, whether 75% is accurate or whether less than 50% would be within the permissible limits of constitutionality as per certain other Supreme Court judgments.
Right. Yes.
The courts.
It is bordering on unreasonable, unconstitutional all the way. Right. The only thing I'm trying to mention is couple of things they have tried tweaking just to give the color of constitutionality to the statute.
Understand. Perfect. Next question to Mr. Ravinder Singh. Now, a company, of course, today companies have many locations. They have manufacturing plants, they have warehouses, they have registered office, they have corporate office. Payrolls are being processed centrally. There is central PF registration, etc. Do you feel that with this kind of a legislation, companies will try to move out of Haryana either by showcasing their registered offices separate or by moving out the payrolls out of Haryana, or do you otherwise generally see an exodus? Do you feel this could disincentivize the auto companies or the companies to move their bases out of Haryana because of this kind of limitation?
I think this is a very good question, Sumit. And while agreeing with my, fellow panelist on this topic, it is going to be a very dynamic situation in front of us. Why I'm saying so? Because as we know that, be it a manufacturing or a technology company, it is all going to be skill based, and some few companies are going to be employability with higher skill or niche skills, I would say. So these kind of skill, how it is going to be industry is going to get from the domicile holder of Haryana, that is a big question today. Tomorrow, I think one of the provisions in the act is also speaks about training the people. So lot of stuff and lot of investment is going to go on training people. So L&D, learning and development, is going to play a very, very critical role in time to come. One thing, I see a breather kind of, because this 30,000 limit, at least for IT and ITS, because generally IT and ITS, the employability there is minimum graduate engineer, right? And if we look at this entry level salary of a graduate engineer is slightly above 30,000 a month. So there I see a respite. But for sure, other than IT, ITS, I think we have several industries where, with the mantra of our Honorable Prime Minister, Make in India, a lot of companies, they have entered into transfer of technology with their partners, and they are relying on having lot of technology, lot of R&D center here in India, lot of tool rooms here in India. So to run all those technical gadgets, you need to have a highly skilled people. If those people are not available within this pool of 75%, it is for sure going to be a challenging situation unless company decide to have a huge budget on L&D. So this is how I view it.
Sure, no, absolutely right. And other than the ITS, if we talk of manufacturing and if we talk of the workers and the workmen, etc., there itself, skills might still be required even in those domains. And if they are not available within the 75% pool, it will be a big challenge. Either, on the lighter note, I was just joking with somebody that it will push up the salaries, the borderline salaries, if like in PF and ESI limits, what had happened. So if somebody would have been employed otherwise at 25K or 28K, the employers might push it beyond 30K so that at least they're out of the net. Okay, so that remains.
Sumit, just to add one point, because I'm not very sure, maybe Vishal and Dalal Sab can add to this. I have one practical experience from the state of Gujarat.
Mm-hmm.
I think in Gujarat there was some time back a similar kind of law in which there was they used to insist that you need to employ local Gujaratis there.
Mm-hmm.
Believe me, we set up 2 units there in Gujarat, and we were struggling like anything. The Gujarati people, because they knew that it is them who has to be employed, they they had their own way of working, their own way of reaching out, their own way of, means they were on their own.
Yeah.
So a lot of indiscipline, I would say. And at the end of the day, we had to go for exemption, and we had to employ people from Rajasthan and UP to run our operations there.
Right. No, perfect. So great experience, Mr. Singh. As per proviso to section 3, no person shall be employed or engaged by any employer till the registration of such employees is completed on the designated portal. So it's quite it's a simple one line, but it can have a very deep meaning. So are we saying that immediately from 15th of January 2022, suppose you got 30,000 employees in your company, or say 10,000 employees which are below 30K, and unless all of them are registered on the portal, you cannot really do any single new hiring. Does it what it mean? And what is the purpose of registration of existing employees? Means, are we saying this 75% hiring is for new hiring, or is it for existing hiring also? So what is the purpose of registration of all our existing employees?
So indeed, there is a disconnect here, Sumit, that in terms of the registration, the government has given a leeway of 3 months that you can register the concerned population, which is below 30,000, within a time span of 3 months. But at the same time, if you hire anyone in the sub 30K category, you cannot hire unless you have registered. So there is a disconnect there. So if some leeway was given for 3 months, perhaps it should have been enabled that for the 3 months you can hire. But apparently that is not the case, that you cannot hire unless you have registered your employees. Now, in terms of whether this would apply only to the new recruitments or it will apply to the existing population also, purely from a legal perspective, any law should have a prospective effect unless it is specifically given retrospective effect. And even if you do some maths, for example, today I have 1,000 employees in the sub 30K category, and there is a 50-50 split, right? 50% local, 50% outside state. And in the next quarter, I have to hire 100 people. So if all of them are local candidates, even then I will not be able to meet 75% limit. So in my understanding, this will apply to all the new recruitments. Starting from 15th of January, whatever recruitments we make, 75% of them will have to be local candidates. That is my understanding.
Right, sure. Whether this 75% hiring requirement will apply to only the permanent employees, or will it also apply to contract labor, or will it also apply to apprentices, trainees, etc.?
So, just taking a dig first at what Rami said, I have a slightly different view because I'm sorry I couldn't hear what Rambir was sharing, but in my view, the way it has been projected by the bureaucrats and the government machinery, yes, it should and it should ideally, in right earnest, apply to only new recruitments. But there are two problems there. One, it talks about 75% of total such posts, right, in the legislation. So hence, there seems to be a retrospective effect to that. So whatever I might calculate 75% on, the total posts will always have existing posts also, even though it is talking about the post-commencement impact. That is where slightly it has to be corrected and clarified. Again, there was another notification, there was another letter actually, which I remember, where VS Kundu IAS, dated March 2021, it says, I'll read it out, shall have to employ local residents of Haryana. It gave the limit before that, to the extent of at least 75%. It says, of total such recruitments. Now, unfortunately, they've been referring to total such recruitments and total such posts, and that's what is creating the confusion. Hopefully, the government will come out with a clarification by virtue of the rules, and that's where it'll get killed. Or the way the website is calculates, it'll clarify that it does not apply to the existing ones. Let's hope that does not come, because otherwise we'll be standing in the same place as we are standing up. The labor code's applicability as far as provisions are concerned on the wages, which is a huge hue and cry. Secondly, the second part of what you were asking was?
It was like whether it will apply to permanent employees only, or it is contracted.
To my understanding, that is a confusion that gets arisen from the fact that it says employing, the employer employs people, right? And then they might remunerate it by virtue of salaries or wages or otherwise. Because they're describing it as salaries, wages or otherwise, those modes can actually apply to non-permanent workers also. However, that said, I think there are certain places where employed and employing are being used repetitively. I believe this will only apply to permanent employees. But however, given the new labor code, when you have contractual employees also employed, I think that will also clearly get established. So any kind of employment for that matter will get covered clearly, whether it is by way of a contractual employment or it is a regular employment as we know it today. I think yes, both will get covered, and especially because of the variance given in terms of the modes of payment.
Sure. Thank you.
If I can supplement that, Sumit.
Yeah.
So, since the term employee has not been defined here, so perhaps we can take recourse to the state-specific Shops and Establishment Act. So, if you look at Punjab and Haryana Shops and Establishment, it defines an employee as permanent or a contract worker. So, both will be covered.
Yeah.
To answer your question very simply.
Sure. So both the employees will be covered, absolutely, permanent and contract. And also to Vishal's point, if all the it looks like there's again a gray area that whether the current people will be counted in the 75% positions or not. But if the current were to be counted, then it may result in very obnoxious interpretations, because if the 30,000 out of 30,000 employees, for example, suddenly 75% have to be locals, you can't really fire the other 10,000 and then hire locals. So I think the only thing is for new positions, but
Yeah, it also goes against principles of natural justice. So it beats, any kind of common sense. So I guess that will be, soon addressed by the executive, otherwise by the courts.
we have been talking of that more than 75 or 75% people have to be local hirings. Now, who is a local candidate? The Act does define, the candidate who is domiciled in Haryana. But what does that mean? How do you get domiciled in Haryana? What is the number of years limit, etc.? Would you like to throw some light on that?
So I think, Sumit, there are two aspects to this question. One is, the person who is a resident of Haryana, meaning thereby he has a Aadhaar card or ration card, which is registered on the Haryana address. So that is one aspect to it. I don't think that this person need to get into any kind of domicile. Whereas in the second situation, a resident of a different state other than Haryana, and he has his ration card and Aadhaar card basis that state, and he has been working in the state of Haryana for more than 5 years. So that person can go get into the registration of domicile, and he can be considered as part of this pool of 75%.
Okay. So what you're saying is whoever has an Aadhaar card and PAN card, or maybe Aadhaar card with the address of Haryana, he should not worry too much about it. But somebody who is belongs to some other state, but he has come to Haryana and he's been staying here for more than 5 years, can get himself domiciled by registering on some portals, right?
Yeah.
Right. Any other view by any other panelist on this one?
So I think it would be helpful if the authorities clarify the list of documents and the circumstances under which the domicile requirement will be triggered.
Right.
So we would definitely need some clarity going forward.
I was going through some reports where earlier I think the domicile requirement was 15 years of residential ship, which is now 5 years because of this act. So there were some news reports where Khattar was quoted saying that with this law they will be reducing the domicile requirement to 5 years, so that it the definition of local candidates is broadened, enlarged, instead of a 15-year onerous requirement. But again, I think we are yet to see those notifications where these things occur. And also, Mr. Singh, when the law also says that a local candidate has to be registered with the portal of the government for him to be eligible to be a local candidate under this law. So does it mean, Mr. Singh, for example, if you are hiring for your companies, maybe workmen or other people below 30K, you would have to look at the government portal and screen CVs from there? So is it another sort of Naukri.com or Monster.com, which we have to now see on the government side?
Yeah, so we have been struggling so far with the employment exchange, which has been set up by Haryana government. And we have been, every time, every yearly they come to our office and ask us that how many of people you have employed, where is the notification, how did you notify that this is the vacancy available? I said, I have notified you several times, but you never been able to refer me the candidates with those kind of skills. So what do? I have to run my business. So it is going to be, I'm afraid that we should not land up in having another employment exchange kind of setup where we just keep on scrolling the portal and we don't find the required skills. But it is yet to be seen, because so far in my I have in all my 3 decades of experiences in and around Haryana, and in my 30 years of experience, I have never ever employed a person from employment exchange.
Mm-hmm. So
that's my experience.
The laws have been there for so long, and
yeah.
part of the
So
audit.
every quarter we have to submit a return to them. Every year we have to submit a return to them. Every year they come to us for an inspection. So everything is taking place, but we have not been able to employ. Just to on a lighter side, once when in the beginning of my career, we had one press shop in our company, and we gave one requirement there for the press operators. And you would be amazed to know that we started getting candidates from the export house. The press operator, iron operator.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Good. So, Mr. Singh, you also mentioned earlier in your conversation about exemptions. You had applied for certain exemptions. So, there is an exemption procedure here also in Section 5 of the Act, where it says that if you are not able to find local candidates, you can apply for exception to the designated officer, and he can either accept your application or reject, or request you, or not request you, direct you to train local candidates. So accept and reject is black and white, but directing the employer to saying that, okay, if you're not able to find local candidates, still hire them and train them. How easy or difficult will it be? If you share your experience from an HR perspective, and the workman scenario, manufacturing, and you're not getting the talent, and regulator asks you to still hire and train. How practical will that be?
See, I'm very hopeful with the skill development institutes which have been opened by some of the state governments, and I think Haryana state has also worked on that. I'm yet to see some positive, much concrete result coming out of it, but still, as I said in my opening comments, industry have to be ready now to invest lot in L&D activities, because they have to have their own training setup in house. Though many of the automotive OEMs, they ask the part manufacturers to have their own training setup in their industries, but with this kind of mandate coming from the government side to have people from Haryana and train them, so now it is not going to be an option for the industry. They have to do it. They have to spend a lot of money on setting up these training setups in their organizations.
Understand. Perfect. We were talking of inspections. So Mr. Singh also mentioned something on the inspection. Vishal, there are very stringent inspection and penalty provisions in the Act, where the law says that an inspector can come from 6 a.m. in the morning till 6 p.m. in the evening, and that too with a 1 day notice, 1 day prior notice. So how easy or difficult will it be from a company standpoint? You're the in-house counsel. So how do you think these kind of things will be taken by the corporates?
I think that's what the companies of today are afraid. It takes you back to the red tape and the Inspector Raj, if I may call it that way. I'm sure nobody is wanting that, but today we are talking about self-regulatory organizations, and what we are trying to do away with in terms of the Prime Minister's agenda of decriminalizing various small offences under the Factories Act and such legislations which are archaic being, let's say, taken away ultimately by the government, by the hordes. Now, if we talk about something similar as we were talking about 50 years ago, I think it shows the lack of confidence in the industry that the government has in terms of the implementation thereof. Secondly, I think it will become a lever for the administrative wing to really drive the organizations with, and which is not a very healthy thing in today's scenario. I think if we are talking about a website where registration details will be put in, and you'll have to be filing returns also, and you can possibly govern. I don't think these issues are really good. And again, I think the threshold to which they have gone below, let's say talking about 10 people, I think this should have been actually at least 100 people being employed by organizations, right? So you can't possibly go to all the organizations and look at this kind of scope. I think it's only going to make it, let's say, operate in gray, give rise to Inspector Raj, people trying to function, let's say, in an honest way, may have to leave the state and go away, and especially the small people. I think as a big organization, one can possibly manage the compliance. You can possibly have 5 people who can possibly be brought in at an hour's notice to really deal with regulators inspection. But I don't think anybody operating a small company, a consultancy company, a manufacturing company would want to be inhibited by that kind of issue. They'll just simply walk out, take another premises on rent and just go out of Haryana. I don't think it's in Haryana's favor to really do this in this fashion.
We have some audience questions. We'll just see if we can answer a couple of them. So one question is, so only those, one second. Only whose salary are less than 30,000 gross salary, out of those 75% will have to be from Haryana. That's right. So for all new positions which are created with salary less than 30,000 gross salary, 75% have to be Haryana domiciled. That's right. And next question by Soumya Prakash is, but it would apply to the employee strength in Haryana only, even if there are multiple offices. So no, I think that was clarified initially that if the total headcount is 10 or more, the Act applies to you. And then new positions in Haryana below 30,000, they will be covered by 75%. So if you got 3 offices, one in Bangalore, one in Haryana, one in Delhi, the other positions outside Haryana are not covered by this Act. But in Haryana, whatever new positions below 30,000 you are launching, they will be covered within the law, right? Mr. Singh, Rambir?
Yeah, but for the purpose of applicability, I think all the 3 have to be combined to read number as 10.
Yes, absolutely.
So I will have a slightly liberal interpretation if that gives some comfort to our audience. Is like, for example, in the Industrial Dispute Act, when we look at the numerical cap for applying for permission to the government for any retrenchment, we would look, because any establishment needs to go through the Haryana or Punjab SND registration. So this 10 should apply in Haryana. Like we are saying that all new recruitments, we are concerned only about the recruitment that are happening in Haryana.
So Rambir, are you saying that if a company has say 50 employees, but in Haryana they have 5 employees, then the Act should not apply to that company? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because in Haryana we have a separate registration as an establishment.
Yeah, but again, it could be a grey area because the way employer has been defined in the Act, and I'm sure Vishal, would you want to disagree with this?
So again, I would say what I'm doing is I'm reading the plain Act, and that's why we have grey areas, as we may call them now. But Rambir is adding a perspective as a regulator, which I think is extremely valuable, and these all issues will get ironed out as and when we get into practical mode of it. And assuming it sustains the court's scrutiny, probably a couple of months down the line, we will know the truth about this. But the idea is, till we have clarity around those issues in the rules, probably, that till that point of time, it will be open to scrutiny in terms of a wider definitions import also. And that's where it will be troublesome. But I agree with Rambir, a lot will get ironed as and when it gets into practice.
Yeah, surely. It surely needs more clarity because as of now, when the definition stands, it says an employer means a company, society, trust, etc., or any other person employing 10 or more persons on salary, wages, etc. So it doesn't say establishment and stuff. Maybe more clarity needs to emerge by way of rules or notifications, whatever remains to be seen. Yeah, but the to err on the side of caution could be any employer with 10 head. That will be erring on the side of caution until it is clarified that it is 10 for Haryana only. So that would be.
So probably Ramveer is also coming from a perspective where he says it extends to whole of state of Haryana as far as the enactment scope is concerned.
Right.
And it might actually be right the way he's interpreting it, but just to be cautious and not to err on that side, I think there'll be a very small size of, let's say, number of people or entities, rightly, that'll get impacted in that zone. Otherwise, it'll be very clear yes or no, obviously.
Understand.
Sumit, a far more important point here is on the wages.
Yeah.
So now this 30,000, they have used the word gross salary,
Right.
gross wages or salary,
Right.
and wages are not being defined.
Right.
Again, if I revert to the Shops and Establishment Act of Haryana, wages have been defined in a certain fashion, which excludes your HRA, Provident Fund, conveyance allowance, and some allowances. So again, this will cause problems while implementing. While your gross remuneration may be 50,000, but wages may be 25,000.
Right.
So they have used the word gross, but then they should have used the word all, remuneration or gross remuneration, not wages, because wages again we have to take recourse to Shops and Establishment Act, which again goes back to Payment of Wages Act.
Right. Right.
So there is a disconnect here.
And again, the definition will change when the code of wages, for example, is notified and it becomes applicable. Do you think, Ramveer, the wages definition will be imported and derived from code of wages when that becomes applicable?
So more or less the same, exclusions like HRA or conveyance allowance or provident fund, they are also there. So that problem will again remain under the code on wages also.
Right. Right. So then that's even a bigger problem. So what we are saying 30,000 per month is actually not 30. It could be 40, 50 because minus the HRA, minus the DA, minus so many exclusions. The gross CTC of the company could well be 50,000 or 60,000 and they could still be covered within the, isn't that what you're saying, Ramveer?
Yes. So what I'm saying is that potentially it can lead to many litigations.
Right.
While it is being implemented by the local authorities, it can go into a lot of issues.
So either they should very clearly clarify in the rules
Yes.
that what is the meaning of wages as far as this act is concerned, and then only it will lend more clarity, isn't it?
Yes, I don't know how that is enabled, but this will have to be done.
Sure. All right. So one more audience question. It said that on 6th November, no notification issued under Section 4 of this Act. So still whether 50,000 limit will apply. So very good question. And in fact, within the panelist also, this was being discussed. So I'll articulate the question better. There has been a notification on 6th of November saying that for the purposes of Section 3, the salary limit is reduced from 50,000 to 30,000 per month gross wages. Now, Section 3 relates to registration of all people below that salary. Now, Section 4 constitutes an obligation or a compliance to hire 75% of local candidates with respect to such post where the gross monthly salary is more than 50,000. Now, is this a drafting error or a error where Section 3 limit has been reduced from 50 to 30, whereas Section 4 remains at 50? Is it an error? Or is it intentional that registration is required for 30,000 below salary people and the hiring 75% will still be 50,000? So anybody, any panelist would like to comment on it?
So Sumit, in my understanding, I think this is a clear omission. At both places, it should be 30,000 now. The silver lining is that the power is still with the government, with the executive, to come up with another notification saying that it is also 30,000.
Right, right. Vishal, you have any
And on the practical side, we were debating with Rambir and earlier with the team internally. I think when you register for 30,000, you cannot possibly go and employ for 50,000 and file for VAT compliance, right? So
Exactly.
practically it's impossible to do that. And secondly, I remember Rambir himself saying that because Section 4 derives its powers to comply from Section 3 after registration, it will have to be 30,000. So either ways, it will get corrected to that. I don't think we should worry about that.
Sure, sure. Do principal employers have to register the contract workers on the portal, or will it be the duty of the contractor? I think it should be the contractor registering his own employees, isn't it?
So we are talking about employment because the people will not be employed with the principal. To best of my mind, they will actually have to be registered by the contractors,
Yes.
and that's why all entities will get under that scope. So what will they comply with on their own? That way, it'll essentially be only the top 10-15% of the companies, which is not the intent I see here. But Rambir can add if he has another view, I think.
Yeah. Another question is, what about employees covered under the Factories Act? I think Factories Act is a separate act, and there wouldn't be any sort of overlaps there. So Factories Act continues to govern the way it continues to govern. Is it?
We'll have to comply with both, in my view.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, this will be applicable to factories also.
Factories, of course. We have discussed the domicile, we have discussed the gross salary, wages. Of course, there are gray areas around the gross salary and wages, as Rambir explained. Let's see if the rules clarify something.
While you search for the new question, there was one comment I noticed on the chat, which was good. What is the point of registering all employees if we were only to have 75% on a post-commencement basis?
Right.
That's a good analogy to say that there is something amiss in the entire process. If you want everyone to be really registered there, what is the purpose of that? And then there is another draconian angle there too. Unless you've registered everyone, you just can't employ anyone afresh after the commencement. That's a very, very draconian provision actually. So you would have to just simply stop recruiting people unless you.
Yeah. And there's a very interesting question by Gagan Anand. Hi Gagan. He says, we were discussing headcount in Haryana, then headcount in India, and he says, what if it's a global organization and the company has got headcount abroad in US, UK, Poland, etc. Does the global headcount count, or is it only the India headcount? So, we were discussing Haryana versus the rest of India. He's bringing the global angle. Although 10 is a very small, I mean, if it's a global company, it might anyways cross 10. But Rambir or Vishal or Ravindra, any opinion on that?
I think Rambir had a very clear opinion about whatever happens in Haryana is only the scope. And I think I would tend to agree from a practical perspective. I think that's the correct opportunity. Right. And that's why the bar is too low from a practical perspective to really get to a corner shop which is operating as an LFE, right? Maybe employing 5 people who are, let's say, a sari shop itself selling saris could possibly have 5-10 people, right? Demonstrating saris while they sell. So, and that will get covered, which is really ridiculous actually from a practical perspective.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Naveen Gulati also asked a good question. We have numerous employees working from home outside of Haryana. Are they also counted under the Act? So now in the work from home scenario, where all of us are also taking this webinar, I mean, of course I'm in office, but the other panelists seem to be at home. So how do you count this location and Haryana? And the employer could be in Haryana, but now the employees are sitting in Indore and Rajasthan and Bangalore or wherever else. So how would you cater to that?
I would like to listen to Rambir on his perspective on that, because as a corporate, what we are trying to, let's hear him. I think he'll have good views on that.
So, as I said, we have state-specific Shops and Establishment Act, and the respective establishment have to register. And if these people are tagged to your Haryana establishment, then they are likely to be counted in Haryana, even if they are working from home, let's say from some other location.
Yes.
And that's the whole logic of your state-specific registrations. So that's my personal view, Sumit, on this.
Ravi, but is that kind of provision being looked at by the let's say legislature or the executive to really modify in terms of the new situations? Because I agree that's the practical view, and because they were earlier employed and tagged to a particular location, ideally, whenever we were
Right.
issued an appointment letter,
Yeah.
that seems to be the logical thing. But any thought how to get improvised, because we are talking about now organizations are talking about 50% of people never ever visiting office. So new people being employed, being told, okay, fine, you can work from home, then their home probably will become the state in which they are employed, right? Possibly.
Yeah, but still for, all the HR policies and, all the internal matters of the company, they are governed by, wherever the company is registered, if it is in Haryana. So for all practical purposes, the headquarter of this employee remains in Haryana. And so this is a new event, and I agree that the regulators have to catch up in terms of their own capacity and how to understand these things and respond to these things. And there's always a lag because, as Ravinder and you mentioned, that it's a very dynamic situation. And the regulators need to have a better understanding of the ground realities. And I hope that will happen as we move along.
All right. We've got a few more questions as well, but due to paucity of time, we won't be able to take them. But what I can still promise is we'll compile all these questions, make it a FAQ document, because this law definitely, there are many gray areas, unanswered questions. We will look in the panelists offline, make an FAQ document, and then try to circulate to all the, the registrants of this webinar. And we'll also share a recording of this webinar on our channel so that you can view it offline as well. So, I'll request all the panelists to share a very brief concluding remarks on the overall law. This seems to be a Haryana, a legislation for the benefit of Haryana and the local people. Will Haryana be ultimately benefited? And any concluding remarks if you'd like to share. So, I think starting with Mr. Ravinder Singh.
Well, Sumit, I think I draw my concluding remarks from my opening comments only that, it is going to come more heavily on the organizations to be ready for investment in learning and development tools. So that is going to help. That is only going to be a helping, situation for the organization, unless government gives some more relaxations for industries to remain there in the state. Otherwise, we are afraid that we may see industries going out of Haryana.
Sure. Vishal?
So, Sumit, in my view, the stated intent is very good, but the way the content has been drawn, it does not benefit Haryana and not its people, believe me, because I see a lot of BPO and IT and ITS which are working with a lot of youngsters, not crossing these limits, and especially if the definitions of wages and salaries are in a fashion that a lot is excluded. So what is likely to happen is there will be a lot of exodus of organizations which work with great numbers at a lower salary range. That is one. Secondly, assuming that we employ another million people from Haryana or whatever amount of numbers you might take, it'll all be at the base level. Thirdly, I think it will only lead to a situation where slowly, steadily, there will be a groupism seen at the lower levels, and ultimately, given the labor laws and the laws being modified, you will see a lot of union system prevailing and practically arising in all kinds of corporations, small and big. Because the people will practically start pushing out people who are not domiciled in Haryana. I think it's in nobody's benefit ultimately to have a legislation like this. I would rather say they could have done an entirely completely opposite thing. They should have actually said, let's get together, let's have a budget on the training and development, learning and development. Let's see if we can help people get employable people within Haryana. I think that approach would have worked much better. But all in all, I think this could possibly hit the constitutional validity wall. That is one. Secondly, even if it gets implemented, implementation will be a huge challenge given the low bar that it is being set up, virtually covering 99% of the entities. I think I don't agree with the content at all, and I'm absolutely opposed to it. Implementation. I think nobody's going to benefit fully.
Ramveer, any concluding remarks from your side?
So, yeah, I mean, I agree with Vishal. He has covered a lot of area. So, as he mentioned that the intent is good, the content is problematic, but in terms of content, one thing that can work if this law merely had registration requirement, not the recruitment requirement immediately. So what this can do, for example, is to give the skill mapping or the employment scenario in Haryana, which is available to the government and to the academia for their interventions. Like Ravinder rightly mentioned, that we have to ramp up our L&D initiatives, but ultimately the government has a responsibility to come up with appropriate responses. As it is the industry is paying taxes, that is their responsibility. The government has to come up with innovative solutions that if there is an employability problem, what is the problem with the education institutions, right? And the industry, I think, is more than willing to help them with the job descriptions, the kind of skills that they require. You know, they can go as an adjunct faculty to these colleges. And, you know, many industry wala will tell you that what the students don't, you know, get to learn in 3 years of BBA or 4 years of engineering college, they can teach them in 1 month. So if that is possible, I think, you know, there is an opportunity for young entrepreneurs like yourself, Sumit, to build a unicorn where this demand supply problem is resolved, because we need effective programs of 3 to 6 months where these people can be made employable. So I think there is a silver lining here, and I would like to look at it in that fashion. Hopefully the government will be sensitive to the industry's concern. We haven't heard the last word on this. Going forward, you know, the different pulls and pressures hopefully will remedy the situation.
Sure.
If I add just one more sentence to what you said, I heard, and I was consulted way back a couple of years on a model just like Urban Clap. What this guy was projecting was he will possibly take, let's say for an example, a batch of 20 drivers, train them to be a driver fit to drive a Mercedes. So when you have a Mercedes, you want a driver who's dressed to the occasion, who can possibly converse in a particular language, has a reasonable amount of etiquette as opposed to a person who's not been trained. So he was talking about a trained workforce. I think that kind of an example applies to the entire scenario that we are talking about. You could possibly focus on getting organizations to come together and impart skills and trainings fit for their employability and making more people employable. I think that would have worked. And skill development, as Ravinderji said, is a fantastic initiative in that end. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Ramveer. Thank you, Vishal. Thank you, Ravinderji. And I'd like to sum up saying, you know, as per the Haryana Udyam Memorandum portal, some 18,000 companies have registered as employers on that, and no workers are yet registered. And that's if you Google Haryana Udyam Memorandum portal, I think that's the portal that will be that's going to be used towards registration and there are some bulk utilities and Excel files and SOPs and those kind of things already provided over there. But again, we are still waiting in the rules, the exact process, the names of these websites, the process, etc., etc. Also, as somebody had asked about the writs, as per the news reports and other other reports in the private network, certain writs have been filed in the Punjab and Haryana High Court, and we never know this. It's anybody's guess whether this law is stayed before it comes into operation. That could be also one of the fate, or else how the courts take the view. Of course, it will take time to decide the constitutionality and on merits. But whether before 15th January is the law stayed, or does it go on 15th of January, and do we have to hire, come 16th January, do we have to hire 75% from the local people? It all remains to be seen. Also, it remains to be seen all the other grey areas that we talked about. What is wages, what will be included, what will be excluded, whether the 10 is only Haryana or India or global. Certain very key questions came up in the audience questions as well as they are discussed by the panel. Again, these are some best views of the panel, but when the government comes and clarifies, of course, more clarity will emerge. So, thank you very much, all of you, for attending this webinar in great numbers. And thanks to my complimentary team for putting this together, the research team for putting these questions, etc. Thanks to the panelists for taking time out, and it was a wonderful, wonderful session. And we'll keep coming back with more compliance issues and also post this in the compliance wire section of our YouTube channel. So thank you, everybody, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sumit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ramdev.
Bye.
Thank you, Vishal. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Vishal. Thank you, Ravinderji.